No.
He's not here.
Hi.
What do we have over here? Nope.
So I'm happy to call this meeting of the Senior Advisory Committee to order. We'll start with the roll call. Susan, Bill?
Present.
Yes. Dave Kleinfelter, yes. Julie Hughes? Not here. Jan Jacobson is absent. Patrick? I saw Patrick earlier, but not here right now. Jack?
Here.
Nancy?
Here?
Welcome. Curtis? Good. And Jenny?
Here I am.
Great. We've got a full quorum for sure. And first item of business is always petitions, proclamations, suggestions, and complaints. So does anybody have anything to share in one of those categories? All right, then we'll call on Don from the Public Health Department to give us an update on Carver County Health.
I don't have a ton of updates this week. Like always, we're just watching COVID and seeing what's happening with the new variants, keeping an eye on what happens with monkeypox. The vaccines have come out for the younger kids, so we're shifting our focus to that. And that's really about it. Still doing a lot of food events throughout the week.
What is a food event?
Once a month in the city of Norwood, Young America, and the city of Chaska, they have like a drive-up free food. You just drive through and food's put in your trunk. And then during the week, they have summer meals for kids in Norwood, Young America, Chanhassen, and Chaska. There was 4 sites. I can't remember what the 4th one is. And so that's every week. Families can come and just pick and take as much food as they need. So
That's nice.
yeah.
Have we noticed trends? Are the numbers of participants increasing, decreasing, staying the same?
When Caitlin orders the food, like it will go up one week and she'll order more food and then it will stay the same. For the monthly giveaways, I think they serve around 400 families. I know in Norwood, that's a city I usually go to, they had 60 families come through. And so there is, that's why they're saying there is a need. They're not really seeing it increase week by week, but kind of staying the same.
Do they need to sign up ahead of time, or can you just drive in and?
You can just drive in, They track the number of families and the number of people in your families just to have a count, but that's really all you need to provide. And then you literally drive through, stop at a cone, they fill your trunk with food, you drive to the next cone, they fill your trunk, so.
Wow.
And then the summer one is just tables laid out and you can walk around and grab what you feel like you need for your family. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Any other information from the committee members? If not, we'll move to the agenda. First item is approval of minutes. Would somebody like to move approval of the minutes from, what was the date?
Wasn't that
June-
long ago,
June 20th.
Chair? Yep, June 20th, that's correct.
I'll move.
Jack moves, is there a second?
Second.
Jenny, thank you. Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We've got minutes official. We're down to new business, and we don't have any old business items, is that right, Alyssa?
That's correct.
So the new item is the discussion of the walkability.
Yes, great. But before we do that, I do want to just go back one step and...
Sorry, did I cut you
no,
off?
that's okay. I just want to remind everyone that we do have concerts in the park happening in Victoria. We have a few left. You can see on the screen, one coming up this week on the 13th, and then a few for the rest of July, as well as moving into August. These are partnered with the Classic Car event, so if you're looking for something to do on a Wednesday evening, please come downtown and enjoy the fun. The other thing I'd like to point out is National Night Night to Unite is scheduled for August 2nd of this year. If you or your neighborhood is interested in hosting a block party, you can find more information on the city's website. You can also register your block party with the city and then reserve a visit from the fire department, the Carver County Sheriff's Office, the deputies, and then mayor, members of city council, as well as staff. So if you're interested, check out the city's website for all those information, including these concerts in the parks activities. And then I will move on to the Walkability Program. So within the 2022 annual work plan, the Senior Advisory Committee expressed an interest in exploring potential walkability programs. And that was done with the idea of starting some sort of walkability audit in 2023, if that's the direction that the committee would like to go. So what is a walkability program? Well, to begin the process, staff will be providing an overview, which is what we're going to do today on what a walkability program is and what a walk audit includes. We've also invited Pat Stieg from Carver County Public Health, and he'll be presenting on a new upcoming partnership opportunity with walkability programs. So today, again, this is an informational session. As we progress into the year and into next year, we'll have opportunity to further review these walkability audits, and if desired by the committee plan, a walkability program and audit. So defining a walkability program. A walkability audit provides community leaders and residents with a way to identify unsafe pathways or routes. They'll document needed information and observations and then provide recommended solutions to making streets, trails, and sidewalks safer. People do walking audits for a variety of reasons. You have groups or committees that might conduct an audit of an intersection or a specific area of the community to build consensus around changes they'd like to recommend. You also have city planners and engineers that might conduct an audit with community members for more informational planning design and working through that process of a street and area of a community. And then you also have different facilities, like senior resident facilities, that may conduct an audit specifically around their facility to ensure that residents can safely explore that area. Now, while we'll be looking for recommendation from the committee throughout this process, staff has a preliminary recommendation that the committee, if they would choose to do this, would conduct the audit themselves using your individual lenses to provide understanding of certain areas in our community, and then make a recommendation to city staff on ways to make that specific area safer for all residents. There we go. So time commitment needed to complete a walkability program. A walking audit can occur in a single location, such again as an intersection or around a building. It can be longer as well, evaluating specific routes between specific destinations, which is also known as a mobile walking audit. So depending on the location, an audit can take less than an hour to complete a specific location targeted area, while mobile walking audits could take, multiple hour events because they are really looking at that larger scope of transportation corridors. So the amount of an audit in time involved would be determined by the committee if this was the direction that they would like to go in 2023. Staff would also have a recommendation of locations, which would then be reviewed by the committee at that point. So leading into a walking audit, planning is required to ensure an audit has a positive impact in a community. Shown on the screen is a tentative timeline to plan for a walking audit. So we'll start, as I noted, a walking audit could take a couple hours on a single or multi-day, but we'll begin planning a couple months out. So 3 months out roughly before the walking audit, we'll determine that specific walking location, date, as well as a meeting site. And then if there's neighboring facilities, or if we'd like to target a specific facility, we'd make contact with those areas and neighbors. So then that 1 to 2 months out before a walking audit, then we begin planning the routes, developing that agenda, publicizing if that is something the committee would like to do. You can also directly invite residents to participate in the walking audit as well as an option. And then as we move closer, then, sharing that information with all attendees, asking if attendees need a specific accommodations for the walking audit, and then a week up to the audit just as a reminder of that meeting time and location, just to give you a larger scope of really what time is required to conduct one of these grassroots walking audit programs. And then the cost associated with a walkability program. This also varies based on the type and length of a program. As noted, there's different reasons for everyone to conduct a walkability program and audit. For that grassroots S type and audit hosted by the committee, cost would be pretty minimal, relying heavily on staff time and then just program materials. The other thing that can happen is a consultant could be used to help conduct a walkability program, which would then raise costs. So that was my very high-level overview of a walkability audit, but I would like at this point to invite Pat to come up and speak a little bit more on a program that Carver County is offering related to walkability programs.
Thank you, Alyssa, and good morning, members of the committee. It's nice to be here with you. My name is Pat Stieg. I work at Carver County Public Health along with Dawn. And she's spoken about your committee many times with me about the great things that you're doing to try to make it a wonderful community for all your seniors and all your residents. And then I've had conversations with Alyssa also about some of your interests in terms of a walking audit for the community here. And one of my roles in public health is with our statewide health improvement program called SHIP, which my role in that program in Carver County is around what we call active living. And most of the work that we do in active living is about helping communities to ensure that they are more walkable and bikeable for all their residents, so they have ways to get around if they choose to, whether that be for purposeful needs to get from point A to point B or simply for recreational needs to do so safely and conveniently so they can do it regularly, which of course is good for their health. So one of the things that we're able to do is provide some resources to our communities, our community partners, to do some of the things they want to do in terms of making their communities more walkable and bikeable. And even here in Victoria over the last couple of years, we've done a couple of things that you may be aware of. And that's where we got a request to place some benches along some of your trails, because as we all know, sometimes we have residents who don't go out and walk because they need a place to sit and rest if they're going to go out for a walk. And if there's not a place to sit and rest, unfortunately, that means they don't go out and walk. So we were able to provide some benches in some strategic locations here in Victoria. And we're always happy to continue to work with you in any way you'd like. Just in terms of what Alyssa said, in terms of the walkability audit, it is an important piece of trying to make a community more walkable, because as residents here, you probably know where we have some areas of the community that are very walkable and some areas that could really use some improvements if they're going to be walkable, particularly as we think about all ages and all abilities. But having done some walking audits and be involved with them in the past, I know that there's nothing quite like being out on the ground and really being observant of what is happening in this area that makes this a safe, comfortable place for all people to walk, and what's going on here that really doesn't make it very safe or comfortable at all. And so I've had the opportunity to be a part of that on a couple of occasions. In terms of the scope of what we can support for you, it can be as broad or as narrow as you'd like. For example, the city of Chaska in the last couple of years, they're looking at walkability and bikeability in their community as well. And they heard about opportunities to get national recognition as a walkable community or a bikeable community, and they got really excited about that. And certainly, like all communities, they had some areas that were very good already, but they also had plenty of places that needed some improvements made. And so what they decided to do was to develop a comprehensive pedestrian and bicycle plan for the whole community, looking at all the different neighborhoods and all the different areas, the residential areas, the retail areas, and see if they could come up with a master plan. And of course, over years, hopefully they'll implement that plan and continue to make the community more walkable and bikeable. as Alyssa said, sometimes when you enter into this work, you sometimes want to hire a professional consultant. Sometimes the cities don't have the funds to hire those consultants. And so that's where we came in the city of Chaska, because they didn't have the money to hire the consultant they needed to come up with a plan. So we came in with some of our SHIP funding to make that happen. And then on just a beginning level, to do a walkability audit, which is a part of creating that plan. Again, if you were to hire some expertise to come in and help you, but maybe the city doesn't have all of the funds or maybe any of the funds to do that, through our SHIP program, we're able to help provide that type of resource for you if that's something you need. And then most recently, the Minnesota Department of Health, which provides us our funding for SHIP, notified us that they had a new arrangement made with one of the professional planning firms called Alta Planning to help us as a recipient of SHIP funds and our partners such as cities of Victoria to do this type of work and have the expertise readily available for communities that wanted to take advantage of that. And so after I talked to Alyssa and I heard about your interest and then heard about this opportunity for our local health departments around the state to take advantage of Alta Planning, I had a conversation with the contact at Alta Planning on Friday, telling him I was meeting with you today. And fortunately, he's an old friend of mine. We used to do work together on this type of work, and he was very excited to see if there's any way he could be of assistance here in Victoria. He's doing some work currently with 3 different communities of various sizes all over the state of Minnesota, and so he was excited to hear about your interest, and he's very interested in speaking with you more if he can be of help to you and all of us working together. So that's kind of a little overview of what my role is and how I try to help communities with their interest in making their communities more walkable or bikeable or both. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Yes.
Well, it's interesting that you're here today because Jack and I were walking over here and talking about walking the trails. And I walk every day, and it is actually dangerous out on the trails. And the reason it's so dangerous is because the bikers have forgotten all biking etiquette. And so I think the best thing for especially seniors is for the bikers to be educated again as to things like on your left, because you take your life in your hand as a senior going out for a walk on the trails in Victoria, and you have to be so conscientious. And as we all know, many seniors have hearing issues. And so I don't have any suggestions as to how to resolve that, but I think that's the most blatant thing that needs to be somehow taken care of through education or signage or something, because it's dangerous out there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is a piece of the puzzle, and I regularly use trails in my neighborhood, sometimes walking, sometimes biking, and they're almost always a multi-use trail. It's not just for bikers or just for walkers. So we do have to learn how do we navigate this together safely so everyone can enjoy it. And yeah, I've seen plenty of bikers who aren't being very conscientious about how they're passing by. Perhaps a high rate of speed could make it very unsafe for the walkers. So I agree with you. It's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do trails ever put speed limits up?
Yeah,
Never
yeah,
seen that.
yeah. It's not uncommon at all, and you know, I think particularly when it comes to bikers, you know, in the biking world, they kind of view bikers as being in different categories, and the ones that I think we're talking about that we feel might be a little reckless are usually those individuals who it's nothing for them to go out on a 40 or 50 mile bike ride every day and nothing bothers them, nothing stops them, they're fearless. But for most bikers, that's not the situation. And so they do drive at a more comfortable pace because they have concerns as well. But for some of those other ones, yeah, they're just out for their long marathon ride every day and going at a
I would say
significant
90%
speed.
of people that are biking on the trails in downtown Victoria do not say on your left when they pass you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very rare.
Yeah, you know, and for myself, when I'm biking the trails and I'm coming up on a walker first of all, I got a bell on my bike, so I first hit the bell a little bit to give them a warning somebody's coming up. And then when I get close to them, I announce on your left. And I also slow down because I don't want to go blasting past them. I just want to go get around them at a nice slow pace and then continue on my way. Yeah.
Are there already some walkability issues or trouble spots that have been identified in Victoria, or would we be starting at square one?
Great question. So there's a few ways that we could go about it. There has been some studies with Carver County related to walkability in the city of Victoria in partnership with our neighboring communities, and there is wayfinding programs that have been developed, and we could start with looking at those wayfinding areas that have been located. The other way you can go about it is starting from scratch and really looking at those areas where there's a more concentrated senior population, such as the condos that are next door, or Bethesda, or Greencrest. So there's a wide variety of places that we could start. We can start scratch, or we can go forward from a project that's already begun.
How does this relate to the Park and Rec program trails? Because isn't there a plan to add, to complete trails and finish trails and so forth for the city already in place?
Absolutely. So the Park and Recreation Committee, as well as our Park and Recreation Department, does have a long-term trails program on adding new and additional trails to our community. They also have program in place to modify our trails related to, you know, just cleaning them up and providing new asphalt and all those things that go into maintaining our trails nicely. Something like this, I think we would be looking more at ways that we can make our trails better for people of all ages and all demographics. So kind of like Patrick said, looking at incorporating benches, or is there other wayfinding opportunities for people with dementia so they can make sure that they can find their way home, and taking a look more on that way rather than maintenance of trails.
Is there presently trail maps available? I know at one time years ago, Carver County had it on, they had maps on their website. I walk a lot. I go through neighborhoods, I go on trails, but are there maps that show all the different trails, and are they graded as far as accessibility and which is steeper? Where are these benches placed? So I know we have a wealth of trails, but I don't know if there are maps. So if you want to do other trails, where you can find those out.
Yeah. Melissa, I don't know if you know the answer to that specific to Victoria.
I know that we do not have an extensive trail map to what you were saying, so that might be something that the committee would like to look at as well. What you were describing sounds fantastic, having where those benches are placed, having the type of grade related to accessibility sounds like a great thing to implement in the city. So if that's something the committee would like to do or like to recommend, I think that would be appropriate, yes.
There is down here by the bathrooms, there is the big billboard, and but they're very general. It doesn't have any detail at all about it.
Yeah.
They made some attempts.
Is this trail here a Three River Park trail? Because at one point it was.
It is the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail, so it's part of the overall regional trail system. Yep.
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
And that is what the map belongs to. It's part of that regional trail map. Yep. So it's not very specific towards Victoria.
One other thing, when you mentioned high concentrations of older adults, your condos, with all the building going on in Victoria, with multi-units, I know there's a big development going up, know a number of people that live there. So there are other areas where there are a lot of condominiums and townhomes that people live in, that if we decide to do this, it would be nice to identify those areas for connectors, or to have paths to show how they can connect to trails through neighborhoods.
Yeah, I would just comment that, you know, all of those type of things you've talked about are commonly done in different communities who want to make their community walkable for all. And, you know, with regard to the maps, I know that if the city wanted something with more detail, as you described, and maybe needed some support to make that happen, I've had some conversations with Ann, the Park and Rec Director, about the benches and other things, and we've talked a little bit off and on about maps. And that's something that the county certainly could help support too, both in terms of our county GIS department, who could help with that mapping. And then I think as you look at the geographic boundaries of Victoria, you know, you certainly want to include your city-owned and operated and maintained trails, but also your county regional trails, because they run right through your community. The map obviously would not be something you would want to take on for, say, a 40-mile radius, but within your area, and then be able to show people, if you continue outside of Victoria on this trail, it'll take you to X. And then, like you said, the various elevations could be included in there to help people. In most cases, we're talking about paved trails, so they're fairly accessible for most people unless there's elevation issues. But sometimes communities will have a combination of paved trails and turf trails or crushed rock trails, and that changes accessibility a little bit, and so that's good to note on the map as well, where the surface changes. So there's lots of possibilities there, and yeah, we will help the community in whatever way we can to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that I think it was the city of Chaska was trying to kind of advertise themselves as a walkable or a bikeable community. Is there some kind of organization that rates that or criteria that you have to get to be designated a bike-friendly or a walk-friendly?
There is, yeah, and it's the League of American Bicyclists, so it's a national organization, and they designate communities throughout the country. And Minnesota has had a lot of new communities come on board in the last 10 years or so. I think we're up to about 40 communities now that have been given that designation. And they go anywhere from kind of like a bronze level, which is considered pretty good, pretty walkable, and then silver's even better, gold's even better, and then they got a platinum level. And so we have communities throughout Minnesota that said we would like to achieve that designation. And not only is it healthy and safe for their residents, but also it's an economic boom, because a lot of people are looking for places to walk and bike and enjoy themselves, and maybe even move to, because they want to have that access, and so they seek out that designation.
Could you tell us more about what it takes for the different levels?
Well, I'm not an expert in all the levels, but and again, when we worked in Chaska with the Minnesota Bicycle Alliance, and as a first step for them to come out, because they really want to help more communities to achieve this status. And so they came out and worked with the city of Chaska, kind of did an audit, so to speak, and said, well, these are areas that are looking pretty good. These areas are going to need some improvement in order for you to even reach the bronze level. And then if you want to go above and beyond that. And I'm sure if you've been here a while, which I assume you have, you've probably heard about, you know, Minneapolis and St. Paul are considered pretty walkable and bikeable communities, and they continue to work at that. And so Minneapolis is like at the platinum level now, which there's only a handful of those in the country, and maybe not every community wants to be at the platinum level, but there's always areas for improvement. And particularly in a town like yours that is growing, there are things you can do to, quote, fix areas that maybe aren't as good as you want them to be. And then there's areas you can proactively plan for, because you know that out east of town or south of town, there's going to be a new development. So let's make it walkable from the start so we don't have to go back and fix it. Yeah.
I have not exactly walkable, but this intersection up here by Ruby's Roost and Winchester and Rye, and people walking across the street and cars coming and the U-turns they make. I know that isn't necessarily a walking concern, but it's kind of fun to stand back and watch. Which car is going to stop and which car isn't, and it's scary sometimes.
Yeah.
And their older people don't walk very fast when they cross the street, so and they've got little brick sections which are supposedly the pedestrian.
Yeah.
But that's a different area, obviously. But still.
Well, and I think you know, most places where you find cars, you're going to find pedestrians and vice versa. Maybe not, maybe one is more dominant than the other, but it's never just exclusively one or the other. So you do want to look for those areas where you ensure that when there are pedestrians there, it's safe for them to cross. And certainly a motorist doesn't want to make it unsafe for a pedestrian intentionally. So how do we balance that out? And fortunately, there's a lot of different applications, as traffic engineers know about. Well, in this situation, this is what I recommend. And you know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I've seen a lot of roundabouts in the Victoria area, but there certainly are a lot of roundabouts in Carver County, and there's more so in where I live too. And it wasn't that way 10 or 15 years ago. I was like, what's a roundabout? But boy, does that improve safety, not only for motorists, but for pedestrians, simply because the cars are slowing down so much compared to previously when there was no traffic control at an intersection, or it was just a signal light or a stop sign. But when you got a roundabout, that forces people to slow down. And so, like them or hate them, they work. And that's just one example of an engineering solution. The other things I've seen more of lately are the pedestrian-activated crossing lights, where you have a crosswalk, and you know, it may not be a place where a lot of people cross regularly, but people cross there. And so when they come up there and want to cross, they activate the button and the lights start flashing, and the motorists are notified that there's somebody about to cross the crosswalk. And I've seen that be incredibly effective too, as I'm out walking and biking, and cars stop, cars slow down. And so lots of things that can be done. Other questions I can answer for you? Well, the other thing I would say, you know, I was grateful to see kind of the timeline you're looking for. And the timing is actually pretty good, because in terms of our funding, because our SHIP fiscal year runs November 1st through October 31st, which is a little odd, but so we're getting close to the end of our current fiscal year. So any project that we would fund this year would kind of need to be completed by October 31. But if it's going to happen after November 1, early 2023, that's fine too, because we're going to have more money next year. And this is about the time where we're starting to plan for 2023. So we certainly would want to stay in touch with you and see what your plans are, whether they be short-term or long-term, and make sure that we can get a feel for maybe what type of financial support you would need or request from us, so we can put that into our budget for next year and make sure it's available for you.
So do you have some unbudgeted funds sitting there for this year?
We do have some funds that, you know, last year at this time, we were thinking there might be a project we were going to fund, and it just hasn't panned out for a variety of reasons. So we're kind of at a point now where we're looking to say, well, that money we were going to use for this active living project doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. Do we have a project in another one of our health areas, such as healthy eating or something else, that could use a little extra money? Then we just shift it over there and we make sure we get it spent before our year runs out, but it may have been for a different purpose. But currently we do have some money. It kind of happens every year where we have a little money that the project didn't pan out in the time frame we anticipated when we budgeted. So yeah, so if there are things that, a piece of the puzzle that you would like to see happen before the end of October, yeah, just let us know and we'll try to make sure we can support that. And if it's after October, that's fine too, because we got more money coming. So. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. I look forward to working with you on this. I really enjoy helping communities who want to achieve these type of goals, and enjoyed working with Ann again in Park and Rec to put those benches out there on the trails, and look forward to doing other things here in Victoria as well. So.
We appreciate your time and the info.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Alyssa knows how to get a hold of me, and Don knows how to get a hold of me, so I'm available.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Any questions for me, committee, at this point?
Next steps?
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what's our first steps or next steps. I like this idea a lot, and I'm not sure where to begin.
That is kind of what I'm looking for, is seeing if this is something that the committee would like to move forward with, or is this something that the committee would like to make a pass on. So if we would like to move forward, then we would start by determining specifically, is there type of locations, kind of like Nancy, you asked before. Do we start with looking at areas that, you know, haven't been looked at related to walkability, or do we look at programs that have already been started? So we would start going through what those initiatives already were, and then kind of take a look at what areas that we could focus on if we wanted to start from scratch. So that would be kind of our next step if the committee would like to move forward.
I do think it's a wonderful idea and an opportunity that can only better our community, especially the older adult population and everybody who uses the trails.
Jack, thumbs up or?
Thumbs up, absolutely.
Jenny?
Yes.
Yeah? Curtis, how do you feel
I
about
think
this?
so. It's worth looking at.
I think we've got consensus here that this is a good idea.
I think so as well. Is there anything specific, after hearing from Pat, and just kind of what a walkability program is there anything specific the committee would like staff to look at further right away? Funding opportunities, consultants, areas specific to the city?
Is there somehow you put out the bulletins every so often for summer activities and so on, where you could include, as Jenny said, something to the effect that bikers, would you please let the people know, not in those words necessarily, but somehow to make a list of acceptable or suggested behavior on the bike paths?
That sounds like a great idea and something that we can talk to internally as staff on ways that we can better educate our bikers on using the trails.
I found when we first moved here 8 years ago, almost every biker said passing on the left. And now, as Jenny says, they just go.
Yeah.
But so it's a different, I'm sure it's maybe a different level of people or age group or whatever, but we need reminders.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Jenny.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think it would be helpful to get an idea of, in a walkability audit, if anything's been done in the past, and what would be the priorities? Do we pick certain neighborhoods, like you said, where seniors are located? And what's the cost? I mean, if there's funds available, we ought to try to, you know, tap into those funds once we know what the high priority or the target locations are. I assume that's how it works, right? You like, if you know, designate these couple of blocks as a high access area for seniors, that's where you do the audit. And what does that involve? I mean, we could do part of it, or if we had funds to hire consultants, we could have them do part of it, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's something we can talk about as a committee too.
I too would like to see whatever the trail map plan is that Park and Recs has, where the holes are, because I assume that fits in here at some point, right?
I will bring back the trail plan for you all to look at. Yes. Yep.
Anybody else have any ideas, suggestions, questions? Do you have enough to what you need to move forward?
I think so, yes. So just to recap for the committee, for our next few meetings, we'll go through past projects, what have been done in the city, what current projects are open. We'll go through kind of looking at those priority locations throughout our community, and we can always add to that list. We can remove to that list as we discuss. And then looking at costs related to if we wanted to do a walkability program. What are those actual numbers related to doing more of a grassroots or a consultant type of program? And then lastly, bringing that trail plan back for the committee to review, just to get a good understanding of what, you know, the overall trail program is for Victoria.
One last item. The what it takes to get to bronze level, or information. If there's an outside group that could come in and tell us, here's what you need to do in Victoria to be a designated walkable, bikeable city. It'd be nice to know kind of how big that is and how far away we are from doing that.
We'll bring that back as well.
Melissa, I would just add on to that question that the gentleman I mentioned, Matthew from Alta Planning, he began his job at Alta about 4 months ago. And prior to that, for the last 7 years, he was the walking and pedestrian and bicycle coordinator for the city of Minneapolis, who has that platinum designation.
Yeah, sure.
So he said he'd be happy to work with you in any way, and could tell you probably off the top of his head what it would take.
Great.
Yeah,
What a great partnership. Thank you for.
good contact. Right.
Well, thank you for having me here.
We're good.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Moving on to the agenda then, folks. Anybody have any items for other business that they'd like to bring up at this point? Maybe for this meeting or for future meetings? Don't see any. I think we're ready for adjournment then. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting from someone?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
Second.
Sue seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Well, now you two can walk home.
We'll hope the bicycle.
Yeah, get home safe.
Don't you think a big problem with the